When we last left Dante, he was at just gone past the gates of hell. He had seen in the outer precincts of hell the so-called neutrals, the people who couldn't decide, never make a choice, never commit themselves. And as I mentioned, Dante gives them the anonymity they deserve. He doesn't name any of them. But now we're in Canto 4, which is the circle of hell that is called limbo. Dante doesn't use that term, but it's the place where you have the virtuous pagans, the virtuous pagans. Who are the virtuous pagans? These are the good guys who lived before Christ. They weren't Christian. In fact, they didn't know about Christ. And they are here where they don't suffer any severe punishment, but they also feel a sense of weariness, of exhaustion, and they don't have hope. So in that sense, they are part of the abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Dante presents these as sort of good people, good in the human sense. They have been pursuers of truth and of knowledge, but they don't have the Christian revelation. And so they don't get the final knowledge that they seek. And this is really why they're always groaning and sighing, because their efforts to get somewhere are always falling short. And the problem, of course, with being in hell is that they fall short now eternally. You'll never get to the place that you want to go. By the way, Virgil himself, Dante's guide, belongs here. He is an inhabitant of limbo, of the circle of the virtuous pagans, the outer ring of hell. And he's been temporarily asked to go on this mission with Dante through really all of hell, and we'll see virtually all of purgatory. But when that ends, Virgil will come back here into his circle. Who's in the circle? Well, it's a grand tour of a lot of interesting characters. By the way, Dante doesn't, distinguish between people who actually lived and some characters in books, mythical characters, if you will. Dante treats them all as real. And so you go through hell, and who do you see? Well, you see Plato. Plato was, of course, a real person. Socrates also. But you also see people like Aeneas. Aeneas is the hero of Virgil's Aeneid. There he is in the fourth He is in Canto 4 in the circle of the virtuous pagans. You find the pre-Socratic philosopher Thales. You find Seneca, the Roman writer. Hector, who is the fictional hero, one of the heroes of the Iliad. He's in there. Homer, Horace, Ovid. And but then you find something interesting. You find that there were people in this circle of the virtuous pagans who are no longer in hell. And you have to stop for a moment and go, wait a minute, what? I thought hell was eternal. I thought abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Once you get in, you can't get out. Well, as it turns out, and this is how complex Dante is and how interesting, there's an exception to this rule. What's the exception? Well, the exception turns out to be the faithful Jews of the Old Testament who didn't know about Jesus. In that sense, they too would fall into this camp of not being saved. But Jesus apparently went into hell and got them out. Now, this is not directly in the Bible, but it actually is in a Christian tradition going all the way back to the beginning. It's called the harrowing of hell. This is the basic idea. And I can cite the lines from the Creed. This is the Nicene Creed. On the third day, he descended into hell. He descended into hell, and on the third day he rose again. So apparently Jesus was 3 days in hell. What was he doing? Well, he was getting out the virtuous, he was getting out the faithful Jews who were taken up into heaven. So this is the only case we can find. There's one more case, which I'll mention in a second, of somebody in hell who actually got out. They were temporary inhabitants of hell. Who's the other case? Interestingly, Dante. Dante doesn't, even though Dante goes through the gates of hell, abandon all hope, ye who enter here, Dante is not like everybody else. Dante is in fact going back to his normal life after he's done. So he's an exception. Now, Virgil, interestingly, died himself, the real Virgil, in 19 BC. And there's a very interesting message where Virgil says to Dante, he goes, this harrowing of hell, this event in which Jesus came down here and took out the faithful Jews and took them with him to heaven, he goes, that occurred shortly after I got here. So Dante is now referring to Virgil, who apparently experienced this event called the harrowing of hell. And a final little twist, a little detail that I think should not go unnoticed. As Dante is making a list of all these guys he's running into, Homer and Horace and Hector, he also mentions 2 Muslims. Wait, what? He mentions Averroes and he mentions Avicenna. These are 2 Islamic philosophers who, by the way, were, as far as we know, devout Muslims. They believed in Allah. And what are they doing here with the virtuous pagans? Well, I think what Dante is saying is that these guys were not known for being mullahs or Islamic fanatics. No, they were philosophers. And they were philosophers who engaged with the same themes that occupied people like Thomas Aquinas. So they were struggling to get a better understanding of God. And so Dante doesn't see them as Muslims per se. He sees them as philosophers in the same category as other philosophers who are right here with the other virtuous pagans. So we see here how Dante takes a very interesting view on topics like, is there salvation or even the possibility of salvation for non-Christians? He makes us think very hard about where people actually belong. He's forcing us to second guess his own judgments. And of course, his own judgments are judgments that will be ultimately decided not by us and not by Dante, but by God himself.